All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. I have a small two-game slate here for you guys, but it is kind of a fun two-game slate. What are your kind of initial thoughts for this slate there, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, two games spread out. Not a ton of news we're waiting on in the late game, which is obviously nice. We already know that Curry's out, Draymond's been suspended, so we're getting value from Golden State. We also have my Nets on the slate, which is always fun. Love to talk through the end of the bench and get some hot takes on what they're going to do with rotations there. So two games that should be competitive, and not too much news we're waiting on. So really, no reasons not to like it for a two-game.
Yeah, and so kind of the nice thing about the two-game slate is we can kind of go team by team news-wise, then we can kind of just go position by position. So let's kind of do that news-wise. So we'll start with the Brooklyn Nets first. Can you hear me on the slide? We had difficulties with this yesterday. Can you?
I'm good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, looking at the Brooklyn Nets, we know that Nick Claxton is back and also Cameron Johnson are back. Is our expectation that they're probably both going to get around 30 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Cam Johnson. I don't see why he wouldn't. Claxton, I mean, it seems like they're a little bit slower to ramp him up. We haven't seen him go over 30 minutes yet. I don't know where we're projecting him, but I think in a competitive game, he's going to have to close against Bam. So, yeah, I do think 30 minutes is definitely a possibility for Claxton here.
I do just want to get your random thoughts on this. Sharp was someone that props wise, it was like over 6.5 rebounds or something like that was like heavily favoring the over there.
Wow.
Is there any reason for that? Is that just like maybe Nick Claxton gets into foul trouble tonight, or is that just like, I don't know. I felt that was weird.
I mean, his fantasy point per minute this year has been kind of ridiculous, and he's a player when he was first in the rotation that I was never excited to see on the floor. But I mean, he's done a good job, and with Simmons out, he is the backup center, so I do think he probably plays 15 to 23 minutes here, depending on what we get out of Claxton. But almost every minute Claxton's not on the floor, you're going to have Sharp on the floor.
Okay.
He's still cheap enough, and yeah, I mean, it's not the best rebounding matchup. He's put up some huge numbers against really small front courts recently.
Yeah.
Orlando with Goga there, Washington with Gafford, and then the Clippers. He had double-digit rebounds. I think only one of those games was without Claxton. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit of recency bias. I wouldn't be rushing to the under, but at the same time, I don't think it's insane to expect 6 or 7 here. Yeah.
I mean, I was just kind of wondering, that just kind of made me think of like, why is that even there? Like, is he someone we could go to maybe if we want to bet on Claxton and get into foul trouble? Is pretty much what I was saying.
Like, with no Simmons, he's the only other center on the roster.
Okay. And we do have Mikal Bridges pulling in a bunch of chalk, especially on FanDuel. I am very much indifferent about this. I feel like Cameron Johnson's the better play. And even Spencer Dinwiddie at lower ownership, I think I'd rather go in on. But obviously, you're watching these games and seeing it a little bit more than me. Kind of what are your thoughts there?
No, I mean, Bridges should be the alpha, for lack of a better word, in this offense, but he hasn't been yet this season. He's not shooting as much as we saw last year. I think it's a confidence issue, but that should continue to go. And then, I don't know, I think of all these Nets, he has the highest ceiling. But for me, I'm with you. I actually like Dinwiddie best at his respective ownership. Seeing the offense run through him, he's done a good job facilitating, actually making a lot of his shots right now. Pretty streaky shooter. So whenever he's hot, I do like to get to him. So yeah, I'm with you. I will say Cam Johnson at the price is definitely appealing, but he's very much scoring dependent. So he's one of these guys we get a wide range of outcomes from. I mean, there's times where he's rebounding well, etc., but I don't want to rely on him for that. So you almost need his shot to fall. So he's more of like a large field play for me, but I do think point per dollar, he has a pretty good chance to hit value here.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I think we're good there. Let's go ahead and move on into Golden State, another pretty big injury situation that we have here, or suspension and whatnot. Draymond Green obviously got suspended there, and then we're going to be without Curry. First and foremost, was that suspension enough?
Yeah, I think I don't know. Usually they only give guys a game or two, but since Draymond kind of has a history, I think it's pretty much warranted. I thought they'd only give him 3. I know there was like some conspiracy theories they'd only give him 2 because they have 2 national games coming up, tonight included. But yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty warranted. Like, yes, Gobert was pulling Thompson off of McDaniels, but I
Mhm.
mean, it's like Draymond had nothing to do with that skirmish, really.
Right.
I know, I know, Warrior fans are like he's protecting his guy, but it did seem excessive.
Yes.
And I was dying at the comments. I don't like Gobert at all, but the
Yeah.
comments he was making after the fact, where he's like, "Yeah, if he knew how to choke someone, I'd have been asleep, but he doesn't know how," and like taking shots at him that way. And then the other one was like, whenever Steph doesn't play, he's going to get ejected on purpose because he can't stand to be on the floor without him.
I didn't see that. That's
And like,
hilarious.
I don't like Gobert, but man, some of the quotes he got in after were pretty
Yeah,
good. So, I
that
don't
is
know.
great.
It's funny. I don't mind it. But I will
Yeah.
say this. Hopefully, this stops the NBA from like suspending guys or double technicals for just staring guys down. Like we have
Yeah.
stuff like this that happens with Draymond, where you should be getting guys out of the game and stuff. But like Giannis dunking on someone and then staring them down is not a reason to eject them. So hopefully, this kind of, I don't know, it raises the bar on what an ejection should be. if nothing else.
Yeah. I think as the season progresses, they're going to get later on that. It's just early, so they're trying to put some emphasis
it's
on it.
goofy. Yeah,
But that's our long way of getting into the Golden State Warriors. A fun way of getting into the Golden State Warriors here,
Yeah.
guys. So I don't want to butcher his last name, but Braden there, he's pulling in a decent amount of chalk after getting a lot of minutes, and it's tough for me to really want to eat that chalk just simply because we don't know for sure if he got a lot of minutes in the last game because Clay was out or because that's just what they like that game. Like, is that could be?
Yeah. I mean, I
could be-
did hear Kerr. Kerr did say he's played his way into the rotation now.
Mhm.
Even when they're healthy, he's now going to be a part of the regular rotation. So, especially with how Clay's been shooting and Wiggins too, like they've both been terrible. They need someone to score. So I do actually like him, even coming off the bench. I think at his price on DK, he's tough to get away from. Doesn't necessarily need to be hot to get to value at 4,500. But yeah, I mean, he's a shooter, but his shots been falling. And
Yes.
Kerr does seem to really like him though, and I know Kerr's one of these coaches where it takes the young guys a while to get into his favor.
Yes.
I mean, Wiseman never did, even as like a first overall pick. So Pods, we'll just call him Pods so we don't butcher his name. I do think he's viable on both sides certainly. But yeah, on a 2-game slate. If Clay's lower owned, I guess that would be the pivot, but it looks like Clay's really popular too.
Yeah, that was kind of going to be my like secondary question to that. So it's like if we are playing Podsky, let's go with that.
Nice.
Is like Wiggins still in play? Is Clay in play? Because that was the toughest part for me. To me, it almost seemed like we were almost probably just choosing to pay down for Podsky there, and maybe not going Clay or Wiggins. And to me, like it's tough for me to imagine all three of those correlating together. So that's kind of my biggest issue with how much chalk they're all pulling.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky too because it's a 2-game slate. And I think if you're looking for value, like, I don't know, the best value is on Golden State just because you have those two guys out of the lineup. Obviously, Curry demands a ton of usage. And I don't know. They're cheaper than they should be. I mean, Clay's price on DK a little bit tougher to get to on FanDuel, where he's still 5,800. I think you can get all three and feel okay about it. But again, if this was a bigger slate, I wouldn't recommend it. But 2-gamer, I mean, it's tough to really set many rules like that. Because again, if this game ends up competitive or the Nets game is slow, two better defensive teams in that first game, maybe it's okay tonight to have 3 or 4 Warriors.
Yeah. I was just trying to read the questions there. No, I agree with that. And then I just kind of want to gather your thoughts on Dario Saric as well. So he's pulling in as pretty chalk. Is there, and so I was really shocked at the minutes for Jonathan Kuminga. I thought he was going to get a lot more minutes. That was a costly mistake 2 nights ago. I guess I was just surprised that even with Draymond out, he didn't get the run. Do they love Dario Saric that much, or was that just a situation maybe where, given the matchup with Minnesota, they didn't like it as much, and now maybe in this matchup against OKC, where I personally see this being a better fit for him, and Saric is still fine. Like Saric is a point per minute player, but is there any way we get to Kuminga hoping that he gets more minutes at 17 and 18% ownership, maybe being overweight, or is that just they got it? The community's got it correct. Everything's correct here. No need to get too crazy with it.
I mean, he's the logical pivot off of chalky Saric, but I do think Saric is much safer and kind of similar to Pods. He's played his way into this rotation. Like, coming into the season, I was not trying to play any Dario Saric, but I mean, he's been in a few of my lineups the past couple Warriors slates, and he's consistently hitting value, and that's really all you can ask for. I mean, the prices come up, but not to the point that it's out of hand. And again, we only have 2 games to choose from tonight, and yeah, he looks good here. I think it's just tough to get away from because. Yeah, I mean, as far as like the 5K plays go, like we're looking at some really tricky ones on OKC. We'll talk about in a bit. Some of the Nets guys like Finney Smith O'Neal look okay, but they're inconsistent. So I think Sarge has a higher floor than a lot of the other guys in his price range. And for that alone, with the power forward eligibility, I do think he's a good chalk. I will say Kuminga, though, is logical leverage. Like if things aren't going well for Sarge, you have a lineup without him. Kuminga is the very logical GPP pick there at a much lower ownership.
Yeah, so I've been going mostly like 4 lineups. I think I'll just go with Kuminga in 1. Probably is my approach. Which I guess 25% would that be? And then Cavon Looney. To me, I thought this would be like the easiest play on the slate. He's only pulling in 33% ownership and only 14% ownership on FanDuel. I guess on FanDuel it makes a little bit more sense, but I don't know, the 26 projected minutes that he has, to me, like I personally think that's a little bit too low, but at the same time, if he gets 26 minutes, like in this matchup, I don't mind him. Like last game, he had 32 minutes against Minnesota, which against Minnesota, you're not going to do much against them, but against Denver, where he got 30 minutes or so, 27 fantasy points. And so I don't know, like we have seen him in the past where when he's getting minutes in somewhat of a, I don't want to say easy matchup, but middle of the road matchup tonight, it's a little bit appealing to me, especially at that ownership.
Yeah, and I think the issue is people are going through his game logs. They're looking at his rates on the season, and most of those come with Draymond on the floor. Mm-hmm. We saw this at times in playoff runs even. When Looney's in there and Draymond's not, Looney has a ton of upside. So I do like him a lot. I am a bit surprised he's not more popular, but I mean, with the 1 center position on FanDuel, they took away Bam's center eligibility. I know he's expensive over there. That's going to drive down the ownership of all the other centers. And if you are looking to get value with someone like a Sharp or even a Sarge, it is tough to get Looney in there as well. So I get it. But personally, I do like to play point per dollar on both sides. I think he makes a lot of sense. I like that we saw him play 31 minutes when Draymond was suspended. That tells us Kerr's willing to give him the run. And yeah, I mean, they're really not that deep in the front court after Sarge and Looney. So I don't think it's insane to play them in the same lineup, honestly. I don't think there's really a ton of direct correlation there because Sarge is playing a true forward position now. We saw him playing some backup center with the Suns behind Ayton last season, but this is a different role. So yeah, I like both a lot.
Yeah, and we haven't really even seen the Warriors too much, obviously, with this lineup or anything like that. So like the sample sizes that we would have to like draw any conclusions isn't great enough anyway. So yeah, I don't mind that. We did have a question coming in from Jose. He's on every video. Thanks for being here, Jose. But looking at it, yeah, he's asking about Jaquez, Kuminga, or Sharp for DK tiers. Dang, that's tough.
I'd say Jaquez. I think he's with Hero out. I think they like what he's been doing.
I want to touch on that actually in general. So let's just.
Yeah, I know this is your guy, so please do dig in. But for me, I mean, Sharp has similar upside. I don't trust Kuminga nearly as much. I think Hawkins, you're going to get 30 minutes out of him. And when all else fails, I mean, just play the guy who we project for the most minutes. And to me, that's Jaime, but.
Yeah, so I kind of want to just mention this. So my issue with Jaquez is that we saw him get 30 minutes in 3 straight games, which is great. Prior to that, we saw his minutes being limited, which wasn't great. I've been wanting to play him this whole season, but I do just want to caution against it. Like Lowry was essentially out last game, and he was out he was out. Yeah, he was out 2 games in a row, essentially, with getting a foul trouble.
He got foul trouble, right? Yeah.
And then Jimmy Butler in the game prior to that was also out. So like, with Hero off the court as well, it just made logical sense, especially with Caleb Martin out as well. It made logical sense for Jaquez to get the minutes. So I still like him. Like, I still think, what do we have him projected to get minutes-wise? That's the biggest indicator. Like, I still think he's a fine play, but, like, I wouldn't be shocked if he, let's say, plays 20 minutes in this game. Now, we haven't projected to get 25. That's probably correct. Right? But at the same time, like, if Highsmith has a good game or Caleb Martin plays a lot, like, I don't think that'd be too shocking either.
Yeah, Martin hasn't really seen any minutes, I don't think. Yeah. I think he's been a healthy scratch. But yeah, I mean, Sharp is similar upside, I think, but I still just think you go with the minutes. To me, Kuminga hasn't shown it this season. Sharp can get there in less minutes, but again, he's a wider range of outcomes. So I'm with you. Like I do want to proceed with caution, especially knowing that Lowry was in foul trouble last game in a big way. I think, yeah,
Yes.
he came in, had 2 fouls, and didn't even come back in
Three
the game. I
fouls,
don't think.
3 fouls in 3 minutes for Lowry.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, and he
Yeah,
never
that's
came
crazy.
back because I guess that game got out of hand or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's definitely notable.
Yeah, I thought so. But that's it really for the injury news. Let's just go ahead and get into the guard plays. Again, if you guys have any questions, get those in. We did have this interesting comments just saying the Golden State Warriors love Sarge with CP3. Was Sarge on that
Yeah,
Thunder
the
team
Suns.
was it the
Or maybe
Suns?
were they on both?
They might
Does
have been.
Sarge go wherever Chris Paul goes? Maybe?
Is that,
I feel
I
like they
don't,
both were in Houston too. Maybe at one point.
right? I mean, Sarge has been everywhere, and I guess so has CP3. So that's interesting. And there might be something to that then. That's hilarious.
Yeah, they were definitely on the Suns together.
Okay. That's funny that my head went to Thunder and yours went to the Suns, though.
Yeah.
Looking at the top guard plays on this slate, kind of just using DraftKings. SGA is pulling in as like the clear cut, go out of your way to play him guard play tonight. And he's only pulling in 30% and 50% on FanDuel. Do you agree with that, just given the OF index there?
Yeah. I mean, what was the exact question again? I
Just
think I
like he
missed one.
is the like clear cut pay up guard play.
SGA? Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's really only two true pay ups on this whole
I
slate.
guess.
It's
Yeah.
SGA and Bam. Jimmy's kind of in that mid range.
Yeah.
There's some comparable guys in that range, but yeah, I mean, if you can get to SGA, sure, I love it. Really depends how much you trust value. You're gonna have to get guys like Highsmith,
Yeah.
Looney, etc., in there to make that work. But yeah, I mean, he's been excellent. And Giddy, we'll probably talk about in a second. He's finally starting to find his shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really helped Shea's floor, in my opinion, that he's been relying on so heavily.
Let's talk about Josh Giddey. Is that a situation on today's slate where I feel like if we are playing Giddey, then we almost have to play SGA? Like we have seen that when Josh Giddey plays well, it's with SGA on the court. And so is that something we would want to do? It's a weird stack.
It is a weird, yeah. It's almost counterintuitive because you think if one guy was going off, the other wouldn't be. But you're right. I mean, in good Giddy games, SGA's been good. But I'll say this: SGA's been good in almost every single game for OKC. So even when Giddy's playing bad, SGA's playing good. So I don't think you need to have both. I think you're fine either way. I'm comfortable playing both. Certainly, again, that game has the higher total, much softer defensive matchup with no Draymond there. So I do like both at their respective price points, but I don't know that I'm forcing them together or separate though. I think you're fine either way.
And then we did get confirmation that they were both in OKC together. That's crazy.
Phoenix too, right? I think.
Yeah,
that's
I think that's right. I'm pretty sure. I mean, he got traded, right? Sarge did mid-season, I believe, and
he goes everywhere. But yeah, that's hilarious.
So we kind of mentioned we like Spencer Dinwiddie at his price tag, and we probably are trying to eat the chalk for Potsky there. I think those are both pretty logical. What are your thoughts on Kyle Lowry? Because he's coming in about 20% owned and 27% owned on FanDuel, where he's 5.2. We just mentioned that the sample size that we have on him, maybe not the best with Tyler here off the court because he got into foul trouble in that last game, but we haven't projected to get 30 minutes. And to me, that's kind of appealing, especially at a seemingly lower ownership than I think he should be on FanDuel at 27% when he's 5.2.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think people are just looking at that last game, not really digging into why he didn't play those minutes and shying away. But yeah, if you're going to get 30 minutes out of Kyle Lowry, he's around a fantasy point per minute guy with Hero off the floor. I like him. I think he's solid on both sides. It's rare you get a ton of upside out of him. But at the same time, I mean, if you're just pretty much hitting value on this slate with some of these guys in the 5K range, I think you're in good shape. So yeah, I like Lowry.
Yeah. I will say last night we did see Josh Richardson and Duncan Robinson have some pretty good value because Lowry got into foul trouble. Tough to say if that's going to happen we have Caleb Martin projected to get 19.4 minutes. I was hoping Martin would be cheaper on this slate because he had guard and forward eligibility. To me, it's probably too thin now. Is there anyone else guard-wise that you want to mention? Or
Yeah, there's one, and I don't love the DK price, but I do want to bring up Lonnie Walker. I really do like the FanDuel price. And he got hurt last game. Similar situation with Lowry. I think people are looking at the game log saying, "Oh, he only played 19 minutes." But yeah, he hurt himself. I forget what the injury was. Missed his whole second half. So he was on pace for a pretty solid game. But now you check the game logs and it looks like he played terribly. But really, he is their scoring threat off the bench. Obviously, no Cam Thomas there. You're going to see
Nope.
high usage for guys like Dinwiddie, Bridges, Cam Johnson in the starting lineup. But after that, I mean, it really is Lonnie Walker off the bench. We've seen him as the leading scorer for the Nets in some of these games, even with Cam Thomas healthy. So if he gets hot, he's going to look good here, even at 5,700. That's a tournament only play, high risk contest only play on DK. But I think he's even low risk cash viable on FanDuel. I think he's only 4,300 over there. Feels
Yeah.
way too cheap. 20% owned actually feels low to me
Yeah.
compared to some of the other value people are jamming in tonight. So really do like Lonnie Walker a lot.
So yeah, I actually missed that. I did not realize that that's why or what happened. Is that kind of what
Yeah, it
happened
was an
against?
injury.
Okay, and he's been getting the
Yeah.
shot attempts up regardless of that. So I like that call a lot for FanDuel. It makes a lot of sense there, especially guard and forward eligible. That's a really good call there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and move on into kind of the forwards. We did just mention a couple. Lonnie Walker, yeah, on FanDuel, I do. That's a good call. Looking at it from there, we got Jimmy Butler pulling in as extreme chalk on FanDuel, and I kind of hesitate here as well, just because again, like Kyle Lowry got into foul trouble, and
Yeah.
like we saw everyone else have to step up and get more usage because obviously here off the court, your normal point guard off the court, it makes sense why Jimmy Butler would finally really have his good game. To me, 70% feels a little bit too high, but again, for me, Klay Thompson at 70% also feels too high. Talk me
Yeah.
onto those guys or talk me off of those guys.
I'll say this. I do think Jimmy is safer and the
Okay.
better chalk play compared to Clay, just because Clay's super scoring dependent. We see Jimmy get the assist, rebounds,
Yeah.
etc. I'm going to match up like this against the Nets. I think he should fare pretty well. Should be a competitive game. And again, I don't know that we need 50 points out of him on a 2-game slate necessarily. If you're not paying up for Bam or Shy, you're going with a balanced build. If all your guys are kind of hitting value and those studs don't do what they need to, then you could land with Jimmy 45 fantasy points and still end up optimal. So I like him here. It's more product of the slate than anything. There just aren't that many plays we're paying up for, and there aren't that many great forwards, honestly. So I do like Jimmy a lot. Clay, I think, is fine. It's really tough to know what we're going to get out of him with Steph off the floor because he got ejected immediately, too. I'm definitely going to get back to him here, but I don't know that I'm going to lock him in or anything close to that. I do think he's a little bit over-owned with some comparable plays on other teams. I don't know, Cam Johnson. I don't mind Wiggins for cheaper. You can see him having a good game. But yeah, I mean, Clay should take over here. Clay should have a huge game here. But if his shot's not falling, he loses confidence early. I could see a floor out of him, and maybe that's the difference on a 2-game slate. And 6,600 for him still feels a little bit inflated, even with Steph out. So I get it. I think in cash games, you just put him in because it's the logical thing to do. But in tournaments, when you're looking for ways to get different, I don't mind getting away from Clay. But yeah, it doesn't feel great. It's like in seasons past, he'd be 100% lock. It's just he doesn't really look like himself yet.
Well, this whole team is kind of just in a weird, maybe fun. I don't know. I think it's just a team, but yeah, it's definitely strange. I do want to take a quick peek at Dort, who's kind of pulling in as a play. Just I want to see if he's a pivot. I haven't really looked at this too much. He's been getting a decent amount. I mean, I guess like
it's a wide range of outcomes with him. Yeah. I mean, I think he could justify the price in tournaments. Like he has big games. It's just you don't know when they're going to come. Like he's not always involved on the offensive end. If he's locking down someone for Golden State, like we see him lock on Curry at times, maybe tonight he could actually be more involved in the offense in this match because he doesn't have to really key in on anyone on defense. But he does disappear at times, but at his price, he can justify that certainly with upside. So a tournament play for me. Don't love the floor, but I do like the ceiling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and another kind of OKC guy that we kind of passed on in the guard spot is Isaiah Joe pulling in. He's pulling in about 20% projected ownership right now, 3.5. He's projected to get 17 minutes, and I think that's just more a situation of people probably trying to jam in a couple of the studs. We saw some pretty high ownerships for Jimmy Butler and a little bit of SGA. Is that really the only way that we're getting to him is if we're paying up for a couple of studs there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he is cheap on DK. There is some appeal there. He'll be in the rotation. They did just get Kenrich Williams back, which obviously doesn't seem like the most important thing, but that is a guy who usually gets regular minutes, only played 14 minutes last time out. So I think he's going to cut into guys like Joe, Wallace, Jalen with a Y, maybe. So these bench guys for OKC, I'm really not excited about any of them. But yeah, I mean, at the price, Joe does make some sense if you're jamming in like Bam with SGA or something like that.
So I just put in the forward or the power forwards now as well. And to me, it feels like the power forwards are better plays on this slate because we got Sarge there, we got Cameron Johnson there. Mikal Bridges, I think, is kind of safe. You got Highsmith at a pretty low price tag and probably a natural pivot off of a somewhat chalkier Hawkes, which pains me to say. I'm wearing the UCLA sweater tonight. I mean, it pains me to say that. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. And I do want to bring up O'Neal and Finney Smith. I'm sure one of these guys crushes tonight. Just, are you going to land on the right one? They're not playing center anymore. Finney Smith was getting minutes at the 5 with Claxton out. That's gone, but he's also going to take probably more threes now as a result. So I don't mind Finney Smith. I don't mind Rose O'Neal, but they're both just like guys, like last season type plays, like Harrison Barnes, but a little bit better. Like if I'm looking for a comparison, I don't know. I like the chalk it forward more than the guard. Yeah,
I agree with that. It's just kind of cheaper price tags, feels a little bit just naturally safer there. And it does feel like to me almost that really, I think I want to play Cam Johnson, honestly, but it does feel like one of these three just at their price tags is due to have a good game, right? Like,
I will say if there's I didn't mean to cut you off. I like the Cam Johnson play. If there's a fade for me, it's probably Duncan Robinson. Again, with Lowry getting more minutes, getting more usage here. The price didn't come down on him. And I mean, this is a guy we usually see floating around 4K. He's 5,800 over on DK, 6K over on FanDuel, drawing decent ownership, floating around 20% on both sites. I can safely say I'm only playing 5 or 6 lineups tonight. I probably don't have Robinson in anything. Maybe it burns me like Champagne did the other day when I was talking him down and he went off. But I don't feel good about that at that price at all.
So to be fair with Champagne, the model didn't update yet. So I mean, that's partially it as well. Like mid price it's not popping up, and then as I think 10 minutes left, it updated and was shown as chalk and easy play. So again, guys, that's a plug for the Discord. That's a plug for the model. It updates up until lineup lock. Be checking that out because that was something I agreed with you. And then it's just like, okay, we got to a certain point where it's just like you got to make that play at 3K or so.
Yeah, I was off on his minutes. He got a lot of minutes.
Well, that's the thing. It updated and we didn't know for sure, but got to go with the data a lot of times. So I do want to mention Duncan Robinson there because it is fascinating. So 4 games in a row where he's gone 30 minutes. That makes sense. Again, given all the injuries that have occurred, Kyle Lowry foul trouble out as well. Tyler Hero out. Jimmy Butler out a couple of games. So it makes sense. They are healthier tonight. And if we look at his game log, he is never that involved, like rebounds and assist wise. The last 2 nights, those have both been up. I don't see that happening again. And so if he has a poor night shooting at this price tag, he could really burn someone. I don't think we're going to get a 40 piece out of him, which is probably what the 20% projected ownership is really hoping for. I would say 20% on this slate is probably correct. I don't see myself ending up on him. If that burns me, it burns me. I think there's safer plays that I don't know if they have more upside, obviously, because he's just done 40 points, but I think have a higher likelihood on this slate than he does.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel the exact same way. It's just, you're looking at back-to-back 40-point games that feel like outliers, like you said. And yeah, the 2 teams he had them against are 2 of the worser, 2 lesser defenses, the Spurs and the Hornets. And I mean, say what you will about the Nets, but I mean, they are pretty solid defensively.
Yes.
We see the lower
tall too.
Here. Yeah, tall too. And I mean, Charlotte, anyone could put up 40 on Charlotte, I think.
Well, I don't think I could, but only 30.
I mean, anyone on this, anyone we're projecting in the model. If I see your name pop up, I'm going to play you.
Podsky, I think his pronunciation is actually close to my last name. I'll have to check that out again. I remember listening to it last year and thinking that.
Yeah, someone wrote the the phonetic spelling. Podjemski. I think that sounds respectable.
No, I don't know. So we did get a question about from Barry about Looney potentially going small. So let's just pivot into the center plays that we have on tonight. So the Warriors could go small. Yes, that happens kind of every slate with the Warriors, but they also don't have Draymond Green, so it's going to be more difficult for them to do that. And I don't know in this matchup against OKC with Chet Holmgren, are they? I mean, he's a lengthy guy. Are they really going to do that? That's kind of my question.
I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know, and it's still a 2-game slate. Like, if you only get 25, 26 minutes out of Looney instead of 30, like, I still think he could get you value.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is a fear because OKC did get rid of Robinson Earl. They don't really have a backup center, so to speak. Like, I guess it would be Poku, who's not even a center. So yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at their roster right now, but yeah, I think it's a fair thing to bring up because we do see the Warriors go small. We've also seen Kuminga even slide down to the 5 at times, but I don't know how eager they're going to be to do that here. I think Looney's fine, like I said. I mean, Saric, he's pretty safe too, playing a ton of forward. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good thought. Like, the process is sharp. I like that you brought that up, but for me personally, I think Looney's still going to play at least 26 minutes tonight, even if he doesn't get to 30. That's probably enough on a 2-game slate.
Yeah, I mean, the other center plays that we have, it's the Holmgren, Bam, Saric, Claxton, and I'm not too excited to get to Claxton tonight. That could burn me, but against Miami, I'm not too excited. I'm also not too excited to get to Bam at this higher price tag, assuming Claxton doesn't get into foul trouble. So for me, it's probably Holmgren and Saric, and then Looney. I don't know. How are you ranking the centers tonight?
I mean, I have Bam number 1 just because he's been so good with the extra usage, and Claxton is a good defender.
You hate Claxton, is what you're telling me. You hate.
I mean, no, I like the player Claxton. I'm a Nick Claxton guy. I was screaming for him to start when they slid Jared Allen, but the thing is, 6,100 on DK does feel a little bit too cheap where you could play 2 centers. 7,200 on FanDuel probably won't get to him over there at all. But yeah, the matchup favors Miami, and I mean, I trust what Bam's been doing with Hero out more than any other player on this team. And yeah, I don't know. It's just thin. Like, center is usually not the thin position on a given slate. Tonight it is. And I think there's opportunity cost if you go away from Bam. Like, I think you could get there with other guards closer to SGA than you can maybe get there to where Bam's at, other than a guy like Chet. But, like, the thing about Chet is, I don't know, he's been a little bit inconsistent too. Like, we're seeing where he's not even getting to 30 fantasy points. So yeah, Bam puts up a 50. You're almost going to need him tonight. So it's just tough. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't really love looking into this too much, and I don't know if it was probably a game. But against Golden State last time out, he had 45, and he was definitely on a better run then as well. So tough to say for sure, but a lot of his production is predicated on getting blocks and steals as well. So
yeah. I mean, it's tricky, and again, it's a 2-game slate, so like anything could happen. But I do like Chet. I like the player. I think he could do well here. Draymond being out definitely helps. So yeah, I'd rank Bam first, probably Chet second. I know that's how they're priced. And then I'd probably go Claxton or Saric before Claxton if we're calling Saric a center. But the ownership reflects that. So I do like Claxton as a tournament play. I will say Day'Ron Sharpe's okay as like a boom or bust tournament type play. But I'd probably put Looney ahead of Sharpe. So yeah, let me just do this one more time. I'll go Bam, Holmgren, Saric, Claxton, Looney, Sharpe.
Okay.
That's the only ones I'd be playing.
I want to add a thought to that. Like, I think Bam and Sharpe could slightly correlate together, meaning that Bam gets Claxton into foul trouble, meaning that Sharpe needs to obviously get more minutes. And if Bam's getting Claxton into foul trouble, there's a chance maybe he gets like a couple of and ones and whatnot, or some rebounds where Claxton fouls him. So slight correlation. I mean, we're trying to get unique. It's a 2-game slate. We did have. Oh no, we didn't really have questions. Just a lot of the chat popping up. So let's go and kind of get into a lineup process here. The chat was saying. Pod is kind of a starting point, and I think we both agree with that. So should we be putting?
Yeah, I like him. I don't know that he's the first guy I'm putting in lineups, but for this video, I like him. I think everyone in chat's been beating that drum, so I'm with it. Let's get pods in there.
So, who would be Saric? Do you think that's your starting point for tonight's slate, or should we just look at ownership? It's Paul, Saric, Clay.
I mean, Paul first.
Okay.
I don't on DK 6,700. I don't think you can get away from him. Yeah, Paul then Saric. That's fair.
Okay. So 3 Golden State Warriors. That might be enough. I might go Looney still, but I don't know. That might be enough as well. We'll try to get. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bam, but if we're going heavy Warriors, like it's tempting to try to get the SGA run back.
So yeah, I want to get to SGA. I'm not too worried. Like if we're playing CP3 and he's being, an offensive threat in this game, obviously he's exerting more energy on offense. He's not going to be able to defend as well for SGA. And I don't know. I'm not too worried about the match. Are you worried about the matchup, or are we not even looking at matchup still too much?
Individual? No.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
Really
I didn't think so either. So let's see here. Small forward then. Could go Jaquez, I guess. A little bit chalky. Lonnie Walker, we kind of said FanDuel, that'd probably be a good move. I think this is kind of the last spot to me.
Small forward, yeah, we could move. We could come back to that.
Like right now, I probably would want to get to Mikal Bridges, but I don't see that as like a need. So yeah, you want to go? Yeah. Do you want to go Looney, Claxton, or?
I like the Claxton price on DK.
Okay, we'll try that. Hopefully, it doesn't get into foul trouble. The next forward spot, I like Cam Johnson. Is there a better forward play that you like? Maybe a Highsmith, maybe a Jaquez, anything like that?
Of everyone you're saying, it's Cam. I'll go Cam Johnson. I like that call.
Okay. All right, so 10.9 left over. Small forward. We can't fit in Bam.
Wiggins.
Yeah, I guess we got to go Wiggins, don't we?
I mean, if you don't like Wiggins, we could get a little. Kuminga has power forward only.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean Clay could go nuts here, but the price doesn't feel great.
No.
I guess Wiggins, but
we'll go Wiggins. Then 5.8 left over. Lowry, Duncan Robinson, kind of fine with either. I like Dort as a GPP play. We got Looney right there. I kind of fine.
I would say Lowry's the floor play, like if you're trying to lock in something safe. But Walker, again, and no ownership, he's a guy who's 40-point upside sneakily. So maybe in tournaments, go Walker. Smaller field stuff, go Lowry there.
Let's make 2 pivots here just real quick then. I'm going to go Bam.
Yeah.
Just to see. And then guard-wise, don't really love it. Dinwiddie, can we get there?
I like Dinwiddie,
yeah. Then we can still go Claxton if we wanted to.
That's a good build.
Kind of works. Yeah,
Jalen Williams isn't terrible. Yeah, Claxton's good.
That's one more try, though. One more try. I think we got it. 3.5. Isaiah Joe, that works. I kind of like that.
I don't mind it. Oh, yeah, as the last guy in, Joe feels pretty solid at 35. So.
Not bad. So we got any more questions? No, not really. After the first 4. Yeah, I mean, this is a slate where I feel like it's almost difficult to eat chalk per se. I mean, you're obviously going to start off eating chalk, and then no matter how you close out your build, you're probably going to be somewhat unique, right? Like it's 2-game slate.
Yeah, like the chalkiest builds, I don't know. I feel like Bam on DK might be even more popular than 50%. I think we have him around 47 right now. But we're not going to see many lineups with SGA and Bam. You're going to have to get probably too much value to make that work. So I think you're going to see a lot of builds with one or the other. If you go neither, you'll probably be different. If you could jam both, you're going to be different. But otherwise, it's tough to get away from some of the chalk because there's just guys that are mispriced, especially with Golden State with Draymond out.
Yeah, I will say, again, I typically do 4 lineups. I might fade CP3 in 2 of them in favor of Dinwiddie, just hoping for Dinwiddie to have an upside game. It's not smart. It's not great, but
no, I mean, it's hard to get different on a 2-game slate.
Yeah, exactly. It's a small way to get unique. So not terrible. I'm going to go ahead and plug the Discord, and then we'll kind of get into our closing thoughts for this slate.
Sounds good.
All right, so just a reminder to everyone here. Typically speaking, we go live on the Discord chat, or someone does go live on the Discord chat about 30 minutes before locks. That's going to be occurring here shortly. Obviously, on a 2-game slate, we don't need to spend too much time on the YouTube live stream, so we should be able to jump in there, or one of us are going to jump in there at about 5:30, and we'll start about probably right at 5:30, maybe 5:35. But be in there. It's going to be live coverage up until lock. Get your questions asked in there directly, give you guys the cash, FanDuel, GBP plays in there. So be on the lookout for that. Link to that's in the description below. All right, so now we pivot back into it. Do you have any closing thoughts in general for this slate? I know we kind of touched on a lot. I don't know if we have any questions coming in. It's a simple. I don't want to say it's a simple slate, but it's a 2-game slate. You can't.
Yeah, there's only so much. A name that we didn't bring up, Dennis Smith Jr. has actually been getting enough run with Cam Thomas out that he could be relevant here. I don't mind him sub 5K if you're looking for a pivoted guard. And then, I mean, in the late game, you have Peyton and Moody. I don't know that I trust either, but I do think they're in that Isaiah Joe range. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them outscored Joe. So yeah, it's tricky.
On the last slate, when Clay got thrown out, I'm like, yes, I have some Moody. Let's go.
Yeah, same thing here.
Didn't work out. I was like, what?
Yeah, it was all pause. But
it was. I mean, good for him.
And then you know what else killed me? Corey Joseph got in before Moody.
Did he?
And I know he checked in before Moody. He only played 13 minutes. I'm not saying play Corey Joseph. Don't play Corey Joseph. But I don't know if that holds up. I don't know what Kerr was doing. I don't know if now he has more time to think about these rotations that we get Moody or Peyton in earlier. But the fact Corey Joseph checked in before some of those other guys, it tilted me at the time. I know for sure.
I do think Minnesota is just a weird matchup to really gauge what to fully expect for Golden State, though.
Yeah, they need size. It's interesting.
So it's a fun slate. It's a fun, probably the most fun 2-game slate we'll have. But that's gonna be all. I don't think we got any slate breaking news. So thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it. Make sure to give a thumbs up on the video before you leave, and be back here tomorrow, same time.
Take care, everyone. Good luck.